Welcome into Five Things after USC's 42-28 win against Arizona State. This is Erik McKinney, joined by Marc Kulkin and Greg Katz. Guys, I think this for us is going to be a little bit like what it was for USC. Let's get in, let's get out. It is late as we're wrapping this up well after midnight here. Five things, as always, we're going to start with our first thing. That is the player of the game. Greg, I'm going to go to you, your player of the game in this one.
My player of the game is going to be Marshawn Lloyd, the running back for USC. I thought he had a really great game. He seemed to be the only one that was consistent, and he had well over 100 yards. So I think he's nailed down that starting position.
Marc, your player of the game in this one.
Yeah, you're wondering why they didn't give the ball to Marshawn more often. 14 carries, 154 yards, 11 yards per carry. They asked Lincoln after the game, should you have given it more? And you kind of just saw the smirk on Caleb's and Jamil Muhammad's face, like, yeah, why didn't we? So, yeah, without a doubt, it should have been Marshawn Lloyd carrying the ball 20 times for over 200 yards.
He had it going in this one. I'm going to go with Caleb Williams, and it was a weird kind of funky game for him. And then you look down at the end of it, and he's 20 of 31. There were a couple drops in there too. 322 passing yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 2 more touchdowns on the ground. And again, another game where if you don't have him there, things go differently. I mean, he just, even when things are kind of falling apart all over, he's still kind of that calm, cool, collected and gets it done when it matters most. He kind of again showed how good he is in this game, even when they're in a tough atmosphere environment and things are not going their way early. Greg, back to you. Our second thing, play of the game. What was it for you?
Well, overall, the play of the game was the 45-yard TD pass to Taj Washington with 7:17 remaining. I thought that was the separation point. Originally, just getting back to what you said about Caleb, it reminded me of the Oregon State game. They all seem to be in a funk. He as well. And then all of a sudden, the light switch went on in the middle of the fourth quarter, and you saw the end result, but it didn't indicate what the game was really like. It was tough.
Yeah. Marc, your play of the game in this one.
Yeah. I don't know if there is a singular play that I want to point to that was like, that did it. So I'm just going to give Dennis Lynch some kudos for kicking a 53. Should have been a 54-yard field goal. So Dennis is perfect on the year, and we might have found our kickoff specialist too. He was nailing him in for touchback. So kudos to special teams.
Good point.
Yeah, it's play the game and stuff. I'm going to go with Greg. I'm going to back Greg up. It wasn't over until it was over, and that was the one, the deep one to Taj Washington, and a real heady play by Taj Washington. You hear a lot of talk about how good he is. He goes out of bounds. He knows enough that he can get back in because he was forced out. And that's his first catch of the game, where you got to stay locked in and where it's frustrating when you either feel like you're open or you're not getting targets or any of that. And he was able to just stay involved, keep pushing, and makes that big play at the end there to not the winning points, but again, what kind of put it away and finally let USC separate a little bit. We're going to go to our third thing. Greg, back to you. This is the expectation that was met from this one, and we may be stretching here to find this one. So go ahead. Your expectation.
I'm sorry, I'm not good into stretching things. I thought it was a pathetic performance. I thought it was embarrassing. I thought they got out coached for about 3.5 quarters. The team was in a funk. They didn't look well prepared. It didn't reach any of my expectations. It was like putting lipstick on a pig. If this is the number 5 team in the country, they got a lot of work to do. I'll tell you that right now. There was no excuse for it. They weren't ready to play, period.
Marc, expectations you had, any of them get met in this one?
When they wanted to run the ball, they ran the ball. I'm not gonna go any further than that. Greg said it perfectly. They did not come ready to play.
Yeah, I think they finished with 8 sacks, which if you talked about the offensive line and what they should do, 7 of those came when Arizona State was kind of done and had given everything they had. 7 of them in the fourth quarter. So again, the raw number of 8 sacks, yes, the way it came about, that it wasn't all throughout the game and when you needed it early on. We'll get into our fourth thing right now, and that was the surprise. Greg, surprised from this one?
I think I was surprised on both sides of the ball. The ineptness of the offensive line at some point, various points, was not very good. Defensively, I was really surprised how the change of offensive coordinator for our play caller for Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, just seemed to have Alex Grinch's number throughout the mostly. I mean, the defense, the Trojan defense looks like I was in a Chinese fire drill for the most part. I mean, even all those tricks that were pulled out of the hat, come on. That was undisciplined play. There's no excuse for it. So that was my surprise, is how Arizona State, that was shut out by Fresno State, is moving the ball against SC. It gave me a lot of fright about Washington, Notre Dame, and Oregon, I would tell you that.
Yeah. Mark, you're surprised from this one?
I was surprised that the offense looked as poorly as it did. I don't care about the bye week. The fact that Caleb Williams is struggling getting the playoff in time, they're wasting timeouts early in a quarter and a half. I'm going to just stop.
Well, Mark, you could have at least mentioned how many times I don't have the stats in front of me. How many times was Caleb sacked tonight?
Too many.
Yeah, well, if you don't have it in front of me, you're right. There was
I do have it in front of me.
was.
Give me a second here. I really didn't want to take this long.
Two sacks. 2 sacks for Arizona State.
But he was pressured more than he should have.
Plenty of pressure.
Yes.
And he fumbled the ball because he was holding it too loosely. It was a poor offensive performance. I anticipate that from the defense. I do not anticipate that from the offense.
Yeah, I think for me, the surprise was you heard all week that they understood what the bye was giving them, that they understood going on the road, what that means. If you're a good team, this is how you play on the road. These are the challenges that you face. If you're not ready for them, then you're not paying attention, all of that stuff. And then surprise, it all sort of fell apart, and really how disjointed the offense was, not really in the plays, because early on you get 3rd and 20 and Caleb drills a dart for a first down and you move and you score a touchdown on the opening drive. But yeah, the pre-play stuff where the plays are coming in late and you're trying to shift with 3 seconds, it felt like what you see on the defensive side a lot, where you're not ready and you don't kind of know what's going on and all of that. And then defensively, the tackling, and you could see when Lincoln Riley talks about it after the game that he was a little surprised too that it regressed so much. And he said he likes how they tackled in the first 3 games, but this one it really cropped up. And Arizona State had some guys that were running hard. They came to play, right? And Lincoln said that too. And I do agree with him, where you can watch what this team did against Fresno State. That's not the team you're playing. You're playing the team that's playing USC in front of a packed house and parents' weekend and all of that stuff. Again, USC knew that was coming. And this was kind of the performance that they rolled out in front of that. I will say, before we get into the takeaway, and this kind of leads into it a little bit, this team tripped and stumbled and all of that, and then, by the way, finished with 42 points and won by 14 and did all of that stuff, which I think if you have a game like this, we've seen really good USC teams in the past trip and end up losing this game. That takes us, though, to our 5th thing, the biggest takeaway. Greg, back to you. Takeaway from this one.
They got a lot of work to do. I'll turn a negative into a positive. Let's hope this game was like the turning point against Oregon State. They turned it on late in the game and pulled it out, and good for them. But my takeaway is, if they watched any of the other games that were on TV today from the other places, they really have their work cut out for them. And I think the free square is over. Probably was good to be in an environment at whatever they're calling Sun Devil Stadium these days, to experience that. They're going to experience it next week, okay, at Colorado. I suspect that they should not expect the Colorado team that played against Oregon today to be quite as pushover as it was. So I'll say, going forward, they better get their act together.
Mark, your biggest takeaway here?
Yeah, they took a step back. They did not use the bye week to their advantage. we could point out the positives, and Lincoln Riley can spin it that we're playing on the road, you're playing against a team that's going to do this. The bottom line is USC was the better team, and they literally regressed back to their 2022 version. If they're not creating turnovers, they probably aren't going to be on the winning side of this game, because they weren't doing the other things well. They weren't tackling. 8 penalties for however many yards. It was just an ugly performance.
So the biggest takeaway is that you win and you get back to LA and you move forward, right? Because it's true, if you can win and get to the playoff, nobody thinks and goes back to this game. But the real takeaway from this is that you are not seeing steps forward and getting better at real key areas. It took a long time for that USC defensive front to assert itself against what I can only imagine are a group of walk-ons and tight ends at this point playing offensive line for Arizona State. That offensive line was decimated and playing without their position coach at the game in this one. So the tackling issues, it feels like every ball driven downfield that gets anywhere close to a receiver ends up caught. Those issues on defense didn't take a step forward in this one after the bye week, and you got guys back healthy and you felt like you had everyone that you're gonna have for the rest of the season. So yeah, definitely something where there's got to be some back to the drawing board, and it's real. The away game, the atmosphere, all of that stuff, you've got to come prepared to play. And it felt for a long time like they really didn't in this one. But I know that they'll take the win, right? They'll take the win, they'll get out, because some teams don't get that luxury. And we're going to take the win, and we're going to head out too. So appreciate you guys watching as always. For Marc Kulkin, for Greg Katz, this is Erik McKinney again, wrapping up USC's 42-28 win against Arizona State with our 5 things. Thanks for watching. We are SC.